If you survive this story, hit subscribe because what comes next will keep you up tonight. The sirens were already screaming when Detective Mara Ellison stepped out of her unmarked car. Cold wind from the Colorado plains howled between the silent gray buildings of Falcon Ridge Supermax, a place known for holding the most dangerous men in America, men who spent 23 hours a day locked inside concrete boxes barely bigger than coffins. Yet even here, something had happened that shook the guards to their bones. An inmate had disappeared. Not escaped, vanished. From solitary confinement, the corridor leading to the isolation wing smelled of bleach, metal, and tension. Guards stood stiff, too scared to look each other in the eyes. Mara could feel the fear. Something about this case wasn't ordinary. Something was being hidden. Inmate's name, she said, flipping open her notebook. Elias Crow, the warden answered. His voice trembled the slightest bit. Serving life for aggravated kidnapping and attempted murder. 0 disciplinary slips in 8 years. Never spoke. Never caused trouble. Model inmate. Mara raised an eyebrow. Model inmates don't vanish from sealed concrete cells. The warden swallowed. Exactly. They reached cell 42, solitary. The door was still locked. The narrow slot still bolted. 3 cameras pointed at the entrance, and all footage showed the same impossible truth. Crow had last been seen lying on his cot at 2:13, staring at the ceiling. At 2:14, the room was empty. No alarms. No shadows. No sound. Nothing. The inside of the cell was a stark, suffocating blue-gray, the kind of color that looked drained of life. A steel toilet. A concrete bed. A single strip of light buzzing overhead. Mara stepped in and immediately noticed something odd. The air felt colder than the hallway. Almost unnaturally so. She scanned the corners, the vents, the floor, every inch of the walls. No cracks. No loose screws. No signs of tampering. But something had been left behind. A message. Scratched faintly into the wall near the bed, almost invisible unless you were looking for it. 23 hours is a prison. 1 hour is the truth. Mara stared at the words, her pulse tightening. Has anyone seen this? No, the warden said. It wasn't there during last week's inspection. So, he did this yesterday, she murmured. Just before he vanished. A guard approached, shaking. Detective Crow, he never wrote anything. Not a letter. Not a request. Not a single word since he came here. He was silent. Mara didn't reply. Her instincts were already turning, pulling at threads. Someone like Crow didn't just break routine after 8 years of being locked away in a concrete tomb. Not unless something or someone pushed him. She knelt beside the cot. That was when she saw the second clue. A thin, folded piece of paper wedged deep under the metal frame. Contraband. Impossible to smuggle inside without a guard risking his career. Or his life. She put on gloves and unfolded it. 1 sentence. Shaky handwriting. They know what I saw. Her stomach tightened. Who is they? The warden looked confused. Crow never interacted with anyone. Everyone interacts with someone, Mara said. Even in here. Before she could continue searching, a sudden shout echoed down the corridor. Another guard sprinted toward them, pale and breathless. It's the cameras, he said. We rechecked the file frame by frame. And the guard swallowed. There's someone else in that cell. Just for 1 frame. A silhouette standing over Crow's bed. Mara's heart kicked hard. And here's the part you won't believe, the guard whispered. He looked at the warden, then back at Mara. The silhouette matches someone on our staff. Mara stood slowly, ice running down her spine. Who? The guard hesitated. Warden, it's you. The hallway froze. Mara stared at the warden, whose face filled with horror, genuine or not. She couldn't tell. But before she could speak, another alarm blasted through the facility. A new crisis. A new discovery. Detective, another inmate is missing. Mara tightened her jaw. Something was happening inside Falcon Ridge. Something that wasn't supposed to be possible. And she had just scratched the surface. If you think this case is twisted now, wait until you hear what they've been hiding. Hit subscribe because this only gets darker. The alarm echoed through Falcon Ridge like a metallic scream, bouncing off steel doors and concrete walls. Red emergency lights pulsed along the corridor, casting sharp shadows that made everything look more dangerous, more alive. Detective Mara Ellison moved fast, boots hitting the floor with controlled urgency. Behind her, the warden struggled to keep up, still insisting the camera footage had to be doctored. But Mara had seen those frames herself. And the silhouette, the unmistakable outline of the warden, had turned this from a missing persons case into something far more sinister. The second missing inmate was housed on the opposite end of the isolation wing. Cell 19. Another man who rarely spoke. Another inmate with a spotless record in a place built specifically for the violent and unpredictable. Mara already knew this wasn't coincidence. Someone was choosing these men. Someone was erasing them. 2 guards stood rigid by the open cell door. One looked like he might lose his lunch. The other couldn't stop shaking. Mara stepped inside. Unlike Crow's room, this cell had no message on the wall, no hidden note. But the air felt heavy, like something terrible had happened only moments before. "Name?" she asked. "Matthew Granger," the guard answered. "Transferred here last year. No visitors. No known enemies. And now no body," Mara muttered. She walked to the cot, scanning for anything out of place. Then she saw it. A single fingerprint smeared in dust on the metal frame. Almost deliberate. Almost like a signature. It wasn't the inmate's. Granger had been missing 2 fingers on his right hand. "Warden," she said quietly, "you need to tell me who had access to this wing in the last 24 hours. He hesitated. "That might be complicated." "I'm not asking," she snapped. "I'm telling you." He finally nodded, defeated. 3 guards. 1 medical officer. And he exhaled. Officer Daniel Holt. Mara knew the name. Everyone did. A former military interrogator turned corrections officer, fired from 2 facilities before landing here. Known for being calm, controlled, and impossibly observant. Too observant. If anyone inside Falcon Ridge knew how to manipulate cameras, schedules, or blind spots, it was Holt. "Where is he now?" Mara demanded. The guard swallowed. "We can't locate him." Of course they couldn't. Holt wasn't missing. He was the architect of all this. Mara moved down the hallway, her mind racing. She pushed through a door leading to the staff-only corridor, a long, narrow route used to transport meals and supplies. Halfway down, she noticed something strange, a small smear of blue paint on the floor. The same dull blue from the solitary cells. Someone had dragged something through here. Or someone. She followed the trail until it stopped at a reinforced door labeled Maintenance Access. Restricted. The lock was scratched, but still intact. Mara tried the handle. It opened. Inside, the air was cold and stale. Pipes hissed overhead. A single light flickered, throwing the room in and out of shadow. At first, she saw nothing out of place. Then she noticed the vent. A large panel had been unscrewed and pushed aside from the inside, and etched lightly into the metal surface were 2 initials. E.C. Elias Crow. Mara's chest tightened. He had come through here voluntarily or not. And if Crow was still alive, he was somewhere inside the facility, in the hidden bones of Falcon Ridge. As she moved deeper into the room, her flashlight beam caught something else. A piece of torn fabric on the floor. Dark, almost black. When she picked it up, she felt cold steel embedded in the threads. Kevlar. A tactical vest fragment. Holt's. Before she could analyze it further, her radio crackled violently. "Detective Ellison, come in. We found something in the control room." "Go ahead," Mara said, breath tight. The guard's voice shook. "We recovered deleted footage. It shows Holt escorting a 3rd inmate out of his cell. Detective, he wasn't dragging him." Mara froze. He was guiding him, like the inmate was cooperating. Her heart dropped. Who was the 3rd inmate? There was a pause. A long, uneasy silence. Then, "Detective, it was Crow." Mara turned slowly toward the dark vent, her skin prickling. Crow wasn't a victim. He was part of this. But before she could respond, the The guard continued, his voice breaking. And that's not all. Holt stopped in front of the camera. He looked straight into the lens and said something. What? The guard swallowed hard. He said, She's getting close. Tell the detective to meet me where the hour begins. Mara's breath caught. The message on the wall. 23 hours is a prison. 1 hour is the truth. Holt wanted her to find him. He wanted her inside the maze. And she was already walking into it. If you're still here, you're brave enough for the ending. Subscribe now, because stories like this don't let you sleep. The lower levels of Falcon Ridge Supermax weren't on any blueprint Mara Ellison had ever seen. The air was colder, the lights dimmer, the hallways narrower. It felt less like a prison and more like the inside of a bunker or a tomb. Every step echoed like a warning. Where the hour begins. Holt's message replayed in her mind as she descended a final stairwell into darkness. Her flashlight clicked on, revealing a long corridor lined with sealed steel doors. No windows. No labels. No sound except the low rumble of machinery buried deep below the concrete. This was the forgotten part of the prison, a place the public never knew existed. A place meant to stay hidden. She reached a large door at the end of the hall. One narrow slot sat at eye level. She leaned in, listening, breathing. A slow, controlled breathing. Someone was inside. Mara unlatched the door. The room beyond was a massive circular chamber, faintly lit by overhead strips of buzzing fluorescent light. Blue-tinted concrete walls surrounded her, giving everything an eerie, underwater feel, cold, empty, suffocating. In the center of the chamber sat a single metal table and 2 chairs. Occupying one of them was Elias Crow. He looked calm, too calm. His hands were folded neatly on the table. His eyes, dark, focused, unblinking, tracked her every movement. He was thinner than in the footage. Pale. But very much alive. Standing behind him, leaning against the far wall, was Officer Holt. Arms crossed, expression unreadable. We've been waiting, Holt said. Mara stepped forward cautiously. You've abducted 3 inmates, wiped footage, and walked through a maximum security facility like it's open pasture. You want to tell me why? Crow spoke first, his voice low, gravelly, like someone unused to speaking. Because the truth doesn't live in the 23 hours, detective. It lives in the 1 hour they never show you. Which hour? Mara asked. Crow tapped the table lightly. The hour when the cameras go dark. Mara frowned. There are no blind spots in solitary. Holt shook his head. That's what they tell the public. But every night at 2 a.m., the system runs a maintenance cycle. Cameras freeze for exactly 60 seconds. Just long enough. For what? She asked. To move us, Crow whispered. Mara's stomach tightened. Move you where? Holt stepped forward, pulling a small remote from his pocket. He pressed a button. A hum vibrated through the floor. Behind him, a section of the wall slid open, revealing a hidden hallway lined with cell-sized rooms, each containing a single chair bolted to the ground and a soft overhead light. Medical equipment was stacked neatly on rolling trays. Not torture chambers. Testing rooms. Mara felt her pulse spike. What were they doing here? Crow looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. Behavioral conditioning. Psychological stress experiments. Data collection. We weren't inmates to them. We were test subjects. Holt nodded. The warden signed off on all of it. Private contracts. Federal silence. Years of pretending the worst men in the country were conveniently quiet. And you participated? Mara snapped at him. No, Holt shook his head. I was recruited to help facilitate it. But once I saw what was really happening, what it was doing to them, I started helping them disappear. Mara's breath caught. You didn't abduct them, she said slowly. You rescued them. Crow nodded. We never left the prison. We left the experiments. Mara turned to Holt. Why me? Why drag me into this? Because you're the only one who won't bury it, Holt said. And because they're coming to shut this place down. Not publicly, permanently. As if on cue, a distant explosion rocked the facility. Dust rained down from the ceiling. "They're erasing the evidence," Holt said. "Every room, every record, every one of us." Mara grabbed Crow's arm. "We need to move. Now." But Crow didn't stand. He looked at her with a calm, devastating finality. "I can't leave. They broke me too deeply. The others are gone already, freed, hidden. I stayed behind to make sure you understood the truth." Mara froze. "Crow." He slid a small USB drive across the table. "Everything is on here. Names. Files. Schedules. The experiments. Expose them." Another explosion shook the chamber. Holt shouted, "Detective, we need to go. They'll take the whole floor down." Mara grabbed the drive and turned to run, but Holt stopped her long enough to deliver the final blow. "Crow won't survive the collapse. He chose this." Crow gave her a faint smile. Peaceful. Resigned. "Go," he whispered. "Tell the world what happens in the hour no one sees." Mara sprinted down the hallway as steel groaned overhead. Holt guided her through a maintenance shaft just seconds before the chamber caved in behind them. The force of the collapse slammed dust, and air past them like a hurricane. Crow was gone. But his truth wasn't. Days later, Mara stood before a federal panel, the USB drive in her hand, the weight of the entire investigation pressing against her chest. She inserted it into the evidence system, ready to reveal everything. But when the files loaded, her blood ran cold. Every document, every video, every name, deleted. One file remained. A single message. "The hour continues." And below it, a new timestamp. 2:14. Tomorrow. Mara stared in horror. Someone else inside Falcon Ridge was still running the program, still choosing new subjects. And they were expecting her. If you thought this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it.